Welcome. We open with an MGN Special Exclusive Report. Michigan Game Night has learned through several team and conference sources that are definitely legit. Do not question me or ask me to name them. That the Rockford Rams have been involved in a comprehensive signal and electronic communications scandal that, trust me bro, is worse than the Houston Astros. Again, this is corroborated by multiple teams, conference, MHSAA, the State of Michigan Justice Department, the FBI, the CIA, and most importantly, several blue check marks on Twitter. The West Ottawa Panthers have been notified and given the option of opting out of their first-round game against the Rams. However, it is the expectation that the Rams will be banned from 2023 postseason play, and the Grandville Bulldogs will be retroactively named OK Red Conference champions and forcibly made number one on everyone's final area top 10 rankings. Thank you, and shout out Stuart Mandel and Ross Dellinger. Welcome to Game Night.
Terry start step up the middle of the field, 40, big hole 50, he's gone 45, at the 30, left sideline 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown Jaden Terry. The tank for the Lancers give read option keeper a whole bunch of space, at the 40, got the 35, 30, up the middle of the field, 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown Bryce Underwood. And welcome to Game Night. Nate Dreyer, Chandler Tim with you here on taking it, the 14-yard line with being offset by Tyson Mann. Jimmy's over the 30, burst to speed at the 40, right sideline 50, able to get away from the tackle, walking the tightrope at the 30, 25-20, all alone, 10-5, touchdown Grandville! Snap to Underwood from the gun, fake handoff in the RPO, thrown left side, caught Yarbrough, sidesteps the defender at the 5, walks in the end zone, touchdown Belleville! The Tigers put it away, 34-17, they're going to go back-to-back. Fake handoff, keeper left side over the 45-yard line, upside the numbers of the 40, 35-30, left sideline 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, 7 touchdowns for Mason McKenzie, and Caledonia has just about served this one up on ice.
All right, welcome to Game Night. It is the playoffs. That cold open hit a lot better 18 hours ago when I wrote it. I tell you what, that hit a lot better then. I am Nate Dreyer. He is Chandler Timmer. This is the Tailgate Report. This is a high school football show. We'll be talking about nothing else today. Welcome, everyone. Of course, thank you to Centennial Securities, Farmers Insurance, presenting sponsors of Game Night on Michigan Sports Radio, the Tailgate Report, everything else. And I thank them right off the top because we've made it to the postseason, CT, and boy, I cannot wait to get this thing going. Of course, first off, I know why everyone's here. We'll get to him in a second. Grandville head coach Eric Stiegel joins us for Coach's Corner for the first time since the start of the season, so we were able to get to plenty in that interview. But CT, we have made it to the playoffs, and now things are about to get real.
Yeah, it's about to get really interesting now. I think looking forward to hearing Coach Stiegel, and it's always good to get a season preview and then kind of a regular season recap, of course, as they head into the postseason. Got a couple familiar opponents, and we'll get into it more as the podcast goes along. But yeah, this is where things get serious. There's a lot of good games looking across the playoffs, a lot of rematches potentially out there, and a lot of really good football left to be played yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, follow at MI Game Night on Twitter X, Instagram, Facebook. Follow, like, and subscribe here on YouTube where you're watching this show. Of course, check out MichiganGameNight.com and the Michigan Game Night page on Michigan Sports Radio. Both have a link to our merch shop where we are working on trying to get some postseason kind of branded merch and maybe Road to Ford Field type merch out. Currently working through a couple different things to be able to get that and a couple different designs and stuff, so should hopefully have that ready to go, and it'll work if you get later in the season as well, and we got some different designs, so make sure you check out the merch shop as other stuff will be coming up. All right, I think we'll get through it quick, and then of course we got to get to our games last week. We're going to be previewing the area, the West Michigan playoff race. We are going to live. We really haven't looked at it very much. We're going to live fill out our own D1 bracket, start to finish, and look back at those at the end of the playoffs. And yeah, we're not doing a power ratings thing because I started filling out my power ratings. I'm like, oh, I'm just listing the champions in the order. So that's completely pointless. On whatever our final podcast is, we'll do our final awards. So that's enough rambling. We'll step aside and then send it over to head coach Eric Stiegel of the Grandville Bulldogs on Captain's Corner.
I'm Randy Hansen, president of Centennial Securities. I've heard it said that professional coaches measure success in rings, college coaches measure success in championships, and high school coaches measure it in titles. But youth coaches measure success in smiles. At Centennial Securities, we're like the youth coach. Our success is measured by the smiles on the faces of our satisfied clients. If you're a Centennial Securities customer, you know what I mean. If you're not, isn't it about time?
Member SIPC and FINRA.
And welcome back, everyone, to MGN and Coach's Corner. Very excited for the first time since before the season. We are joined by the head coach of the Grandville Bulldogs, Mr. Eric Stiegel. Coach, how are you? How excited are you guys to get going for the playoffs here?
Oh, doing great. I'm really excited again to, be in the playoffs and, realize that your hard work and the kids' commitment has paid off, and it's kind of led to, some extra football for us. And, again, we don't take any of that for granted. It's a special thing to, just to keep being together as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of one of the things before we can kind of take a broad look back at the season, we obviously have had a chance to talk to each of your captains and some of your other players the last couple of weeks. And, I as always can only give the highest praise, for all these guys. I guess tell me again about this senior group, about this captain group you guys have, because it's a smaller group, but you can really tell how hardworking and how much they do to help lead the rest of this team on and off the field.
Right, it is. It's one of our small senior classes. I think it is the small senior class since I've been here. Maybe you can look at that for a number of reasons. But I every year I always have at the end of the previous school year, sort of in the spring of 23. I always have our seniors come over to my house, have a barbecue, cookout type deal, games, and but always want to kind of set the tone with those guys, get their thoughts, but also just kind of lay out, the landscape for the season. And for those guys, we said that, it was going to be a smaller senior group, but it had to be a tight senior group. And that group, that group, they are a very tight group. A lot of these guys had big contributions last year as juniors. Some of them had big contributions as sophomores. Mm-hmm. So for them, it was really about being a tight group, but just leaving their mark on the program. Okay, even though they're a smaller group, they can leave a big mark, and they've already left a good mark. And I think for those guys now, we want to keep pushing forward and keep playing as much football as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And let's kind of before we look ahead to the playoffs, let's just take a broad look back, at this season. 7-2, great wins over, especially Caledonia. The losses, of course, to two of the top three teams in the state. Just kind of tell me the 1,000-foot view, how you're kind of looking back at this regular season.
Well, I think when you look back at it, and it's still probably a little early for me to do that because we're so honed in on Hudsonville this week. I think when you look back at it, obviously we think it's a fairly successful season. You look back at, the wins. I mean, we had a big win over Hudsonville on homecoming where we had to come from behind against a really good team. That was a big win for us. Obviously the win at Caledonia was very dramatic over a really good team that got the best of us the past couple of years. So I think that was a big win for us, especially in that fashion on the road. And, so I think those are some highlights that stick out to me. But, I think you also look back, there were a lot of games this year. You look at the Grand Haven game. They start off, they get an onside kick, they score. They get a kick return. We're battling with them, really almost into the third quarter. And those are games maybe the previous couple of years we've kind of ran away with. West Ottawa vastly improved. I think you saw that. I think they really turned a corner in the middle of the season. We're back and forth with those guys again. We fumble an opening kickoff. And they play really well because they're a good team, and that's a game into the fourth quarter. So I think our group has played in probably more competitive games this year, more games that were kind of down to the wire or into the fourth quarter than they had in the past. So I think that does make us battle tested. I think that puts us in a spot where we feel like, if we can get to the game to the fourth quarter, we're going to be in good shape. So I think that's one of the unique things about it. We have found ways to make big special teams plays. We have found ways to make big defensive stops, and some time consuming drives and some big plays down the stretch of games. So I think that's one of the views I have of this season. And like you said, our losses are against two really good teams, Rockford and Daviston, who I'm sure they feel like they're probably state title contenders. I think that about those teams. So, we'd like to play better against those teams, and hopefully we get a shot to.
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned kind of off the top talking about, the senior class. The other really big part of this team is how young you guys have been all year long. And adding to that, there have been some injuries and some different challenges thrown there as well. Tell me about the youth of this team and how proud you are and what you felt they've been able to do, kind of having to step up into bigger roles and maybe unexpectedly bigger roles throughout the season.
Well, I think, they're definitely – I think we knew we were going to be young going in. I think especially at the linebacker spot, we were going to start a junior and two sophomores. So I think those guys have grown. Obviously, we lost Reed Graverson for the season, and that kind of put some more pressure on Garrett Araki. Garrett Araki got hurt, has played great for us at tight end and linebacker. He came back last week. So Anton Santowski, a senior, had to step in and play great. Braylon Haney, as a sophomore, very physical player, definitely growing at linebacker, but all of a sudden, Easton Sadinsky's out after the Hudsonville game. Reed Graverson's his backup. Reed Graverson's out. All right, Braylon, here you go. And he's played great. So I do think that you look at just some of the preparation that we've given these guys in the practices and that I think that shows that they were ready. You look at even in our line, we got a guy named, Daniel Wiley, who is starting an offense and playing a lot of defense as a sophomore. So, we're definitely still are younger than probably usually are. But, we were talking yesterday about this. Right now, these guys are not. We're not looking at these guys as young football players right now. I mean, they have played a tremendous schedule against some of the best competition in the state. So I think right now we don't look at ourselves as a young football team. Maybe at the beginning of the year we look at this is who we are right now, and these guys have grown up. And we're going to obviously still lean on a lot of those sophomores, and obviously you include Jaden Terry in that mix, even though he's a sophomore, we don't maybe think of him like that. We're going to lean on these guys in the playoffs as we go, as we take on Hudsonville this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get ahead to the playoffs in just a second. Want to just have a little bit of a quick note for fun that I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you, obviously, at any point in the year. Right. So I want to go back to the Grand Haven game. So most coaches only get a chance to really be able to preach toughness and taking a hit and getting back on their feet. They can only preach it. You had a chance in that game, if I remember, that you kind of got pummeled into by a couple of your guys, got back up. Were you able to take a chance to show the film to the guys and say, look at this, here's what I can do?
It was actually, it actually showed up better in the Grand Haven film, I think. There's a couple different angles, but so it was a play that, again, they have a tremendous quarterback who's a junior who runs around and making plays, and he had kind of broken contain on the play. I think it was a second or third down play, and he's running towards our sideline. And Stephen Jackson is pursuing just like we want him to. And he basically takes him, and then I kind of get swept. I see it coming. Thankfully, I kind of jumped so my legs didn't get caught. But, I took a spill, got right back up. And, I think the kids had some fun with it. I think the school news might even have some fun with it. So, but that's all good. I was fine. And, didn't miss a beat.
No, that's good. Because we noticed that, we saw everyone went pummeling in. I'm like, there's a collision on the sideline. We're like, that's Coach Stiegel at the base of it. So no, I want to go back to that because that's something we get a chance to talk about. All right, let's. I guess we can now turn to the playoffs. Right. I guess first, the main thing about this playoffs is you look at the region. You guys have played 5 of the other 7 teams already in this region. And it's a real gauntlet. So before we focus on, Hudsonville, talk a little bit of just kind of about this playoff, this region setup, Rockford and Davison and Grand Blanc and all these, other great OK Red teams. It certainly is quite the test for everyone to try to make it through.
Well, number one, again, our complete focus is on Hudsonville. That was a game where we had to we had to come from behind to win that game in the fourth quarter to beat those guys. And, that's our complete focus. When you do look at the region, I do think you look at it and it's paired up maybe a little bit different than in previous years, where we do get a Davidson and Grand Blanc. It looked like they kind of grabbed schools from the north and paired them with us with that. And, that's fine. That's how they decide to do it. I'm sure if you look at the other regions, there's some really good teams too. It is a little unique where, again, we've played so many of these teams, and that tends to happen a little bit, especially on the west side of the state in Division I playoffs, just with the lack of Division I teams that you have. Whereas on the east side of the state, that's probably where 85% of the Division I schools are. So there's much greater, those boundary lines, depending on the drawing, there's probably more variability in who you're playing with that. That's what I've long been a proponent of seeding the playoffs 1 through 8, 1 through 16, to try to give your kids, to get some different matchups and get some different things. But I don't know if that'll ever happen. And it is what it is right now. We know that if we want to make a run, that we're going to have to go through first Hudsonville and then another OK Red school, to get to the region. So, we'll have to go through an OK Red gauntlet for sure, for us to get there. And that starts with Hudsonville.
Yep. Like you said, it starts with Hudsonville, This is a team you mentioned. It was a shootout and a tough game. You guys came from behind.
Right.
I think one of the X factors is you're likely going to be seeing a different quarterback this game than you guys even saw in the first one. Preview a little bit of what you're looking at taking on the Eagles again.
Well, I think they are a very good football team, very physical on both sides of the ball. Defensively, they come after you. Have a lot of good kids at all three levels of the defense. On offense, again, they can play with multiple wide receivers, multiple tight ends, multiple backs. So I think they can give you some different things there. Offensive line comes off the ball well and opens up seams for their running backs and their quarterback. You said I do think we will see number 2, their junior quarterback. We saw a sophomore, last time. But for us, they're similar in some regard. I do think number 2 they have probably ran him inside more and done more quarterback runs with him. That's not to say that we couldn't see both, but he's kind of been their guy. So I believe they probably feel better with him. Probably a little bit bigger arm than number 7, although number 7 hurt us getting outside the pocket and making some plays down the field. So I think no matter who they have in there, it's going to be a challenge for us, and we're going to have to play a really good game to come out on top.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can't wait. Coach, thank you, as always, for your time, and good luck Friday night.
All right. Thanks a lot for all you guys do, and go Dogs.
All right, go Dogs. Eric Stiegel on MGN. All right.
All right, welcome back to the Tailgate Report. Nate Chandler, thanks to Coach Stiegel again. And let's get into it. Let's break down the final week of the regular season. Let's start with the game that we were not at, but still give us a little bit of talking point. And that is Grandville and Jenison. Bulldogs win 43-14 in that one. I'm not really sure what happened. I saw the highlights from Snooze, and it seemed like they won. Based on what I saw, based on the score, it looks like they won the game. And I think everyone stayed healthy. I saw some things, maybe they didn't, but I think everyone's ready to go. Everyone stayed healthy. Yeah. So those are the only things that we asked, of course, was win the game and stay healthy. So I think they were able to do that. And that's really all that matters. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess just 1,000-foot view, you can talk about it. I guess a little bit of they did as the stated goal was for that sort of game. We'll get into the specifics of some of the guys they got going, but for the most part, they were kind of able to hum and seemingly didn't have to overuse themselves too much.
Yeah, I think for the most part, the game kind of followed the script, so to say, is kind of what we laid out. It was hopefully going to be like when we were previewing that game last week, and a game where found along with the score as we were broadcasting our game that it looked like the Bulldogs more or less controlled that one from start to finish. It's kind of what you were hoping. looked like kind of had the starting unit out there, had most of the guys ready to roll, of course. Still trying to keep some momentum going into the playoffs. You don't want to completely have your guys not out there at all, but getting them some, getting start the game, a couple quarters, and then not overexerting them necessarily when down the stretch of the second half in particular when you've got the game in the balance there. And so looked like that was more or less kind of the way things went. Had the game wrapped up for most of the second half and able to get another win and pretty easily.
The one guy I do want to talk about that they did get going, and I think is really important for the playoffs, is Carson Kopko. Looks like he had a couple on the ground, including like a 75-yard touchdown run, and then he also had like a 75-yard touchdown reception. Yeah. In a game where I think Jaden Terry had a pretty short night, I think mostly by design in that regard. He had a shorter night. Some of the other guys may have had a little bit shorter night as well, I think, and Carson as well. I think it was a good night to kind of get the guy that he talked about when he was on with us a couple weeks ago. He's settled well into more of that, kind of blocker type role, and maybe running the trap play here or there, and part of the pass game, and playing defense as well, and to some extent. But I think it's really important that right before the playoffs, you now kind of have him ready to go as a weapon again, scoring a long touchdown a couple of times, scoring a short touchdown as well. That's really important to me, I think, to get the senior night Kopko feeling good about carrying the ball and making plays offensively to add to the other guys. Hopefully they'll have Sadinsky back, and now they have a full complement of 4 really dangerous and rolling and confident running backs.
Yeah, I think so. I think really cool to see from Kopko that he has a strong game numbers wise. I think we talked about his role, and he's been playing well all season long. That's not the situation whatsoever, but it's just been kind of the role he's been asked to. They got Jaden Terry out there who's getting a lot of carries, has had a lot of big plays. Sadinsky before the injury, Braylon Haney as well, getting some of the tough yardage, and so Kopko has been able to fill that complementary role that he talked about in his interview, where just helping that backfield click. It might not be the flashy plays all the time, but it's good to see him get rewarded with a couple big plays down the field. I think keeps Hudsonville and potentially down the road further in the playoffs in the back of the mind that the fullback trap and the fullback runs are still there. And then, of course, when you get him involved in the passing game, too, I think that's where things could be dangerous when you've got a couple guys now that have shown they can catch the ball out of the backfield and have had that ability. So I think that adds another element to the game as they move into the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. I think Jennison's second and final touchdown, they scored with just a few seconds to go, or in the very closing moments of that game, and the final quarter and a half, it looked like were mostly being played with the guys without G's on the side of the helmet. So it looked like it was mostly the JV guys getting a chance to come up for the final game of the season at the end. So that means the defense realistically was able to hold Jennison to at worst a touchdown, then another one just really late. And again, Jennison's not a team that's lit the world on fire offensively, but it has to be good for the defense in terms of the feeling against. This is a Jennison team that they kind of run that triple option attack. They can exploit you if you are missing tackles, if you are not covering well in space and reading plays well in space. They certainly will exploit that, and I think Grandville has to be pretty happy with the fact that defensively they were able to completely shut that down, even if it's a team that hasn't been explosive, but good momentum of all right, we completely did what we had to do defensively. No questions asked. Yeah,
always. I think just no matter what, you can't, overlook the just taking care of business on the defensive end. That I think, it's Jennison, and maybe that's what you expected going into it. But also at the same time, you kind of look at the flip side of it, and if you've given up a couple big plays or things had gone south suddenly, maybe you still win the game, but you're looking and seeing that maybe there's some issues there yet that they're still trying to clean up. But the fact that you more or less, give up one touchdown for the most part of the game, one late in the game, and that you were able to hold them in check for the most part throughout the night, and didn't really have any concerns there, and so you're feeling pretty good as you move into this Hudsonville game.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that Hudsonville game and the rest of the playoffs a little bit later on. Now let's go on to, we can break down the game we were at, which listing some of the biggest miscalculations in human history, Chandler. You can think of Troy allowing the Trojan horse within the city walls.
That was a big one, yeah.
Pickett's charge at Gettysburg, of course, backfiring for them. You can think of the U.S. government printing money the last few years to curtail inflation.
Okay.
And how about us going to a game for an offensive shootout with playoffs on the line that wound up being a 30-point game?
Yeah,
that was a pretty big.
That's up there somewhere.
It's somewhere up there. Yeah. So here's the deal. We had the full expectation that, as I set up, Grandville Jenison went almost, if you were to make me pick a score, I probably would have said 42-14 is probably the score I would have said. So, maybe 44-14, somewhere in there. But, that one as expected, which, whatever. So, I thought, student broadcast, they do a great job. Whatever. We'll do Unity's trying to make it in the playoffs. Holland Christian's rivalry game last week of the year. A lot of two teams that can score like crazy, so we thought. And it'll just be, I figured it was going to be 49-42. Whoever had the ball last was going to be sprinting down the field and score. It was 21-0 at the end of the first quarter. It was 14-0 at 3 minutes in.
Yeah, real quick.
I have never been... I don't think... We've said it on the air... I think that's the most surprised I think a high school game has ever left me watching. I don't think I have ever watched a high school game and came away thinking that was literally the one exact thing I didn't think could happen. And it's not that I didn't think Holland Christian could win. I just figured if they did win, it would be high scoring back and forth. It wouldn't be they controlled it by 3 scores the entire game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you can take it from there because I don't really know how to align my thoughts on it. I'm a little bit shell-shocked still.
Yeah, I think Holland Christian got the memo. We wanted a high-scoring shootout. It was Unity Christian that kind of was a little bit slow out of the gate, and it was just really unusual because going into it, we in the pregame and stuff, we're talking about how Unity is the team that's really got a lot to play for. They're the team with the playoffs more on the line than what Holland Christian did, where a win and they're more than likely in, and Holland Christian chances were close to 0. That even if they win, and they were 0. So
here we are.
Yes. Yeah, but I think so if you expect a team to come out hot, and you're kind of thinking, it's going to be Unity. They've got more to play for. Holland Christian, their season's more or less done, and of course they're playing for pride at that point. But man, the Maroons were ready to go. They came out and drive down the field right away, get a turnover on special teams, and score again. And the offense just all night long, setting records apparently that we didn't know about live time. But looking back, a very impressive performance. But
yes, so Eli Boyce for Holland Christian, their senior quarterback, went 24 of 24. Which apparently by 1 or 2 breaks the all-time mark for most passes completed without a miss in a game, without an incompletion, which I was stunned to find out it was that low. Because, listen, I know how some of these teams keep their stats sometimes. Sometimes incompletions might get missed, yardage might get tacked on. There are certain teams, especially, there are guys, I don't even know if I always necessarily trust the statewide touchdown records because sometimes some of these schools I don't even know sometimes. So I figured it would have to be 36 to get to that point. But I was wrong. It was 24 apparently.
Yeah.
And we saw it. We saw the most accurate passing performance in the history of Michigan.
So it was worth it that we went there. That's what you're saying. That
Who would
was
have thought?
Right there.
The one note before we get more into the game, again, obviously, I think one of the main takeaways from the game was Isaac Steenstra, the running back who suffered a pretty serious injury. And at this point in time, I don't have an update. I'm hoping that just means it's good news on him, that it was all just precautionary. If anyone knows and can drop a note to us, either on social media or in the comments here, for everyone, that would be great. But, obviously, all the best to that young man and his family. Scary situation. Second time this year, Unity's had to deal with a player having a serious injury on the field like that. That all adds to Unity, and I think just how kind of shell shocked they were. I want to talk about each team: Holland Christian, Unity Christian, what this might mean a little bit for each team. Not just obviously to wrap up this season, but going forward. First off, Holland Christian, they had a lot of seniors on this team, but the main thing, obviously we just talked about Eli Boyce. He's unbelievably good. I know he's got Calvin and Dorton who'll probably add some offers, and I see why. The main thing, we said it. I don't understand how this team didn't win more games. I do not understand how in the OK Blue, which was better than I think expected this year, but not a world beater conference.
Yep.
I don't understand how this team didn't win 5, 6, 7 games and make the playoffs. I'd be very curious to go back and watch some of these games where they did lose and the offense didn't roll, because that offense looked like it was the kind of offense that, Unity Christian's defense was down this year, But to me, the execution from Holland Christian, the different things they were doing, felt like they're doing that against most teams. Like that I don't know how they didn't win more games.
I truly don't either. I think live time, that was just the main takeaway, is that they had everything rolling. I mean, whatever they wanted to go to, it wasn't just a single player, it wasn't just a single play call that they were running over and over and dominating. But they had everything working. I mean, the quarterback play was fantastic. Of course, the record-setting completions, using his legs as well, was their leading rusher on the ground, had a touchdown, and the way that they've got different playmakers in the slot, and they got the big tight end, and they've got guys all across the field. They spread you out. They've got a quick running back too that they can hand the football to. It's like they had pretty much all the things you're looking for in an offense checked off, and I'm not sure what happened the first 8 weeks of the season to where they weren't doing that, if it took 8 weeks to get into a rhythm. But I mean, you look at the names and the guys, you got a lot of lower level, next level guys that are playing, and so the numbers that they put up on Friday night made it look like they definitely were better than, if you made me just watch that and guess a record, I would have guessed better than what they finished.
You would have said that's a playoff.
Yeah, definitely. I think the only question, and you hinted at, is that Unity's defense has not been great all season. So, hard to say for sure, but I didn't think Unity defense was that bad. I mean, and it's also kind of just an eye test thing of they just looked good. It wasn't like missed tackles on the Unity end. It looked, Holland Christian looked good. It wasn't as much the Unity defense looked bad, in my opinion.
Unity was making tackles on well-thrown, well-placed balls. It was Holland Christian's offense was finding space. Boyce was hitting guys in rhythm. He was dissecting the defense. I was really impressed. You talk about Unity Christian, and of course we're known to hyperbolize a little bit on this show sometimes, but I truly want to have a conversation about this Unity Christian program right now, because I feel like this is a pivotal moment for them, coming off a year where they missed the playoffs and they only won 3 games. Because the feeling was, and of course we followed them to the state championship a couple years ago, that this was a team that I felt they had won the championship, 2 years before. They lose the game to Chelsea, but even with a championship loss that year, they still were the greatest offense of all time, and whatever you can all but call it. It was a championship season that they just didn't win the championship. If that is somehow fair to say. Yeah. 2020, if they didn't get ratted out by a certain team for COVID issues that everybody was having in the playoffs in 2020, wink, wink, nod, nod, we know what was going on with every single program across the state. Just saying. They probably would have won the championship that year too. So with that said, long way of kind of setting up of I thought this was a program that was heading in the direction of, and likely still is, this is my question, of the Rockfords, the Catholic Centrals, the West Catholics, these teams that are year-over-year state championship threats, and they had been that for 4 or 5 years. Now, they had a class and a half of unbelievable talent that coincided with all of that they did. My question is, and this is just kind of generic to talk about, I feel like this is a moment where it's either they were very young, they got a little bit of a kick to the gut this year, quite frankly, with the young team. And, of course, they dealt with a lot of junk. I mean, with, Jake Chapman situation and everything else. They dealt with a lot this year, and they're still very young, and they bring back literally almost everyone. Yeah. My question is, or the thought is, okay, do they take that and do they go from a young team that's in that sort of position, and are they, and this is what I think it'll probably be, they're the bounce back team. They're a team that wins 8-9 games, they go on a state championship run. Or is this the beginning of maybe they I don't say they crashed to nothing, but it feels like this is the first time where since they ascended 10-ish years ago, they haven't missed the playoffs and hit down like this. That's my question. It feels very pivotal for them. If they pick themselves up and go right back at it, then that this program is going to be safe for a long time. But if they don't, it's just an interesting point. I did not think that we'd be at a point where Unity Christian would be missing the playoffs in this manner, ever. Right. Yeah, it's been a long time since they missed the playoffs. Just got the records up here in front of me. In 2013, the last time they missed. So 10 years ago. 10 years. I said 10. Good guess. Yeah, so, it's been a while. And then looking back, 2006, the last time they had less than 3 wins in a season. So, it's been a long now period of success where, there's been a couple 5-6 wins seasons in there and making the playoffs. And, of course, all that building to the championship run a few years back. But, kind of an interesting situation now to where it's been back-to-back years on the downward trend where 6 wins last year, 3 this year, and so now you've got a young team. I think next year you've got
I mean, that's really going to be their find out. I mean,
Yes.
all boils down to that. Can they bounce back? I think you've got an experienced team at that point. Part of that also, the OK Blue Conference has been up, I think, in general terms,
Yes.
as far as Allendale, Coopersville. You've got West Catholic in there that's gone on a state title run as well as undefeated so far this year.
But
So
you got another one.
yeah, so I think part of that is just a little shift of powers at the top, and when you've got some talent. I mean, that happens at the high school level when you're going to have some classes that have more talent than others, and I think it just happened to be that going back to the 21 team that Unity had so much top end talent that it looked so easy, and it was so easy for them that it was naturally going to come back down to earth a little bit. But I think definitely better days are ahead for the Crusaders program. It's just a matter of how quick do they get there, and
Right.
is it next year, and exactly what that rebuild process looks like.
Yeah, it's just interesting that 2 years after what happened at Ford Field, and we kind of walked away from Ford Field that year saying we're about to learn a lot about this program because they lose all but like 2 starters off that team. That you're dealing with this sort of loss and whatever. We're about to learn a lot about this program. They still were solid last year. This year they fall, but again, the schedule is so tough. And like you said, the only devil's advocate point, saying the OK Blue's up, but you look at some of like the OK Greens and the different conferences they were in like the mid 2010s,
Right? No,
way stronger than
that is
even
true.
up OK Blue today.
That is true.
You're playing Byron Center and Zeeland West and whatever. Every single year then, and now you're playing Spring Lake and Hamilton.
Right.
No offense to Spring Lake. Well, they were playing Hamilton. Well,
Yeah.
not
Hamilton's
really.
got 2 career wins against
2
Unity,
careers,
so yeah.
and one of which I mentioned a little bit earlier. If you want to tie together what I was talking about, any further comment on that?
No, I think they got it covered. You can put that together.
Yeah. So that's I think we can wrap it up, and don't want to get too hyperbolic about it, but it is an interesting point. It was a weird thing being there, having the last game we did was the state championship game, and then this, and it's like this feels like the exact same emotion in 2 completely different ways that I didn't think this program has really ever felt, and now so I don't know. It's interesting. I think we can leave it there, and I do think they are my bounce back. I will say, all that being said, if they are at Ford Field next year, would not be surprised.
Yep.
Like just saying,
possible.
like wouldn't surprise me at the end of the day, just with everyone coming back and whatever. So, all right, let's do our Grandville Hudsonville preview now for round 2 of the Eagles and the Bulldogs, with Mr. Timmer in attendance this time.
Yes,
He was
looking
not
forward to
there
it.
last time for what was the game of the year for 2 weeks, and then that changed, of course, after Caledonia. The main thing, talking big picture again, 2 teams going in radically different directions after that last game. Grandville, of course, the Caledonia win, playing as competitive of a 2-3 score loss can be against, kind of Rockford. One of those scores was late, so really a 2-ish score loss, competitive against Rockford. Granville going in one direction, Hudsonville certainly going another. They win only one of the games that remain. They went into that Granville game unbeaten, 4-0, and they only get one more win the rest of the year against Jenison. Losses that no one really saw coming against West Ottawa and so forth. That's kind of the first way to set it up. Is it's fascinating how what a different, both teams were charging one or unbeaten teams last time, and now things are just going in very different directions, yet still it has a little bit of, you can throw that out the window, somehow still feel to it.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've talked about at pretty good length about the Grandville season, the way that they've finished things out, and I think you can always play the what if game, but you look at if things had gone differently in the Hudsonville game, and say Hudsonville pulls that one out to see kind of where things go. If Grandville is still able to have the momentum to beat Caledonia, if Hudsonville is able to turn things around and they win some more games down the stretch, it's it's never ending. What
might be at Rockford this week.
What could have been? You never know. So, but at the end of the day, just 2 completely different directions. Where Grandville able to close the season pretty strong outside of the loss to Rockford. Hudsonville pretty much in a battle every week and making things look a little difficult down the stretch. And I'll hit you with some numbers because I was doing some research. This is danger time here. So the Hudsonville offense, 28 points in 4 games since they played Grandville. 21 of those were against Jenison.
Wow.
7 against West Ottawa, shutout against Caledonia and Rockford.
Let's get into it then. The next thing I wrote, biggest X factor in this game. This is the first time Grandville has seen Griffin Baker.
Mm-hmm.
It was Van Lake, the sophomore, making his first ever varsity start that came in, moved the ball well against Granville. Griffin Baker comes back in, and they've only scored 28 total, and 3 of which coming against Jenison. I'm not saying that. I think Baker helps run a little bit different style of offense. Maybe it's a little bit more grinding type of offense. They still will throw it around a little bit. I mean, it's really tough to say, but it's very interesting where it's like good news, bad news. Grandville has to see a completely different weapon in Baker this time than what they had to see the first time. However, the sophomore kind of kicked their butt the first time around offensively, like out of nowhere. So that's kind of interesting to me. Like, is it system? Is it the kid? But that's the X factor. It's not very often you have a rematch like this off a high-scoring back-and-forth game, and oh, by the way, you're seeing a different quarterback this time around.
Right, yeah, I think it's really interesting dynamic when you think of it all in that. Yeah, I mean, all week, Grandville, you're thinking you're going to be facing Baker at quarterback, and then you throw the inexperienced underclassman under there, and he kind of does really well. I mean, they score enough points realistically to win a game.
And a lot on his leg and
yeah,
he wasn't
really carrying. I mean, he was contributing to the success of the offense, and so now you go back to what was the experienced quarterback that's been playing most of the season, but the offense has taken a downturn since then. So it's kind of interesting there is to see what the game plan for the Eagles will be now that you've got Baker back in there. See if they're able to tap into some of the success that they had with the backup quarterback in, and kind of use that and try to jumpstart their offense when they desperately need it.
Yeah, I want to talk about a couple other X factors in this game for Hudsonville. The first one, Carson Dykstra, the junior receiver, pretty quiet. Grandville did a good job really limiting him. I don't think he had a touchdown. I'm trying to think back. I don't think he did. They mostly went to the tight ends in the pass game. But we know how dangerous Dykstra can be. We saw him last year. I feel like his ability to try to get free and show off some of his dynamic ability in space is going to be really key for Hudsonville's offense because they've been a little bit bottled up. And I feel like they're going to have to find a way where even though he may open up space for other guys when he is bottled up, I feel like he's the playmaker that can kind of make things happen the most. And I feel like Dykstra having a big game will correlate to if Hudsonville's offense is able to put on a similar performance, putting 4 or 5 touchdowns on the board like last time.
I think definitely when a guy like that can help you stretch the field a little bit, a receiver that can maybe get behind some of the coverage of the Bulldogs that's been at times an issue in some of the bigger plays down the field when you've got a bigger body receiver that can maybe break some tackles down the field and can get behind some of their coverage. And so I think definitely if you're getting into more of a track meet style of game again, which I think it remains to be seen, I guess, where things go there because of the different factors. But I think if it ends up being a game where they got to go down the field, you're going to need that vertical threat, and Dykstra's that guy for Hudsonville.
I mean, I can take a guess. It'll be a little bit of a track meet type game because Grandville's played a track meet type game every game except for the last one for the most part. Maybe the Grand Blanc game, but for the most part, that's kind of what it has been. Mm-hmm. So I think it's safe to say to some extent that that will happen. Last guy, their safety, their Wildcat quarterback, Chase Cholik. He had, was it 2 or 3 Wildcat quarterback touchdowns inside the 10 power run game. Hudsonville's been successful with the quarterback power run game, just running. I mean, you think back to the year that hits most was 2019, where they had their then sophomore quarterback, whatever his name was, that's now playing baseball at Auburn or whatever, went to Orchard Lake St. Mary's afterwards. Apologize, I don't know why I'm blanking. Right, I've seen a lot of high school players since 2019. Regardless, they bring him in at halftime. They just go, we're just going to Wildcat power run, and they score like 35 points in the second half just running one play. Like literally they just ran like quarterback power right, quarterback power left. That was the offense. Like Cholik showed that with his ability to bust his way in, get Grandville on their back foot. That's an X factor. And it's something that's like, we've seen it, and this is now like a 4-year trend through multiple defensive coordinators and multiple everything for these two teams. Like, that X factor, the quarterback power run game, the Wildcat quarterback is there, and I feel like Chase is going to play a really big role at some point in getting Hudsonville a touchdown or two that they need to kind of keep pace and make it so that Grandville can't ever be comfortable.
Yeah, I think at a minimum, you have to be worried that he's going to be a red zone threat again, much like he was in the first game. So that's something, of course, you got to prepare for. But I think, in the back of your mind, you got to be thinking about some of those games. Coach Stiegel obviously remembers that, I'm sure, those games, and understanding that, Hudsonville is desperate now if they need offense and they need to pull out whatever tricks they have. They might be involving a Wildcat quarterback and just running a couple plays until Grandville forces them to stop it on the defensive end. And so I think the quarterback power run game is something the Bulldogs didn't really rear its head as much this season. I think it was, part of that due to not as many true running threat quarterbacks that they played. Of course, there's still some guys that had some success on the ground, but the Mason McKenzies of the world were no longer there. Right. So I think, but when you've got a Wildcat quarterback like that you can bring in and can be a threat to use his legs, it brings another element that now suddenly, that's multiple different quarterbacks. The Bulldogs between Baker and also Cholik, that he might be in there. So it's definitely a threat that the Bulldogs have to keep in mind.
That's a really good point, but we've made it the whole year. I didn't even think about that because that was the talking point of the year last year for Grandville is quarterback. All of them, from Joppy to McKenzie to every game, the quarterback run game was kind of all over them, and that's been one thing that there have been. This and that has popped up from time to time from the defense, but that's never been one thing that's popped up. So that's actually a really good point. Something that I didn't even think of, that the defense has done a really impressive job of curtailing this year, but right on time. We're talking about it because I think it could be a very big part of what Hudsonville's doing. So, of course, 6:30 Friday night from Bulldog Stadium. Radio coverage for the playoffs, so it's radio coverage, and it's just us now. You have no other video options, period. You have to listen to us now. Congratulations. We've made it to that point of the season. So, 6:30, we'll see everyone for the Border War rematch as we figure out who lives to take on West Ottawa. Right?
Yeah.
West Ottawa.
That's what we all got, right?
In the second round, who have the chance to do the funniest thing ever. Second straight week, we have a chance for the funniest thing ever to happen.
Yep.
So that's going. We'll see everyone at 6:30 for that. We'll step aside. We'll be right back for our playoff overview, and then also we're filling out our D1 brackets. Right back.
Can you identify your number one personal trait? The thing that you do better than most others? If not, this may be a good time to think this through. If you're really good at writing, then why use the phone? If you're great on the phone, why use email? If you have exceptional human relation skills, why sit back and let others lead? I'm Randy Hansen, president of Centennial Securities Company. Playing to our strengths is something we do very well at Centennial. And if you're already a customer, you know what I mean. If not, isn't it about time?
Member SIPC and FIN.
Hey everyone, Nate Dreyer from MGN, and MGN merch now available for purchase, and we have got a ton of options. Here's where you find the new MGN shop. Go to MichiganGameNight.com. Many of you have probably been there before. Click on the shop merch tab. Many of you have probably been to the MGN page on Michigan Sports Radio. Click on the Buy MGN merch tab. It'll take you here. We've partnered with Teespring, neat company that allows for us to have a lot of different shirt designs. They'll print them, they'll make them, they'll ship them out to you. So a neat way that allows us to have a lot of offerings. We've got a ton of really cool t-shirts, hats, snapback, dad hats, beanie hats, water bottles, more t-shirts, more sweatshirts, just a ton of options. Really, just a ton of options that you're going to be able to look through and find exactly what you may want. We've done what we can, like I said, with Teespring to try to stack this thing. We'll have plenty more options that we'll put up on social media, but make sure you check it out. All right, welcome back to the Tailgate Report. Nate and Chandler. All right, we got SnoozeToYou.com up because it's the playoffs, and let's just kind of buzz through all of this. For starters, Chandler, take a look at the different, mostly just West Michigan sort of things, and then we'll close the show by doing our bracket in D1. So we start in Division I, District 1. I mean, again, nothing much else to say here. We just broke it all down to that game. And then the other game, I mean, set up for the people outside of, I don't even know, missile hitting Rockford High School.
Yeah.
What can West Ottawa do to shock the world? I'd assume it imagines Caden Forbes has to run like crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the way West Ottawa is playing, I'm trying to get everyone's hopes up.
Okay.
Our Grandville fans.
Yeah.
We don't know when Rockford listens to this point in time.
Probably
if you
true.
Do, you're a tough soldier, I tell you what. At the end of the day, it's like West Ottawa is playing really darn good. Really on both sides of the football. Like, of the teams that Rockford wouldn't want to see in that 4 seed, they might actually be it still, to some extent.
Yeah, I think, the way West Ottawa closed the season definitely has to feel pretty good for the Panthers, and the fact, a little unfortunate for them that they're rewarded with a rematch with Rockford the way that they played, but, they've got momentum. That could be a dangerous thing. They've got, as you said, Forbes, a star player like that you can rely on. You've already taken one swing at Rockford early in the season, and didn't really go your way. Rockford won that game pretty handily. So, you've got that game plan to go off of. That's the bright side, right? That you kind of got a game plan and can maybe not do what you did the first time. and so I'm not, we'll pick the game here in a second, so I'm not going to say what I think. But, it's a rivalry. The OK Red District, of course, all right there. A bunch of rematches. Maybe another rematch that would be a good game. But
maybe. And then, folks, we'll go a little bit off West Michigan. Take a look at this crap. You want to talk about stacking, and we'll talk about it more. We don't go into D1 too much now, but Davison, and again, my statement I've been making all year about Davison is the West Michigan media and general fan base doesn't fully understand how good this team is yet. And I saw some comments already of Rockford people, deciding that they're in the state championship game. And anyone that, says otherwise, I was on various evenings. I was on the Rockford Rams football page.
Okay.
I saw that they were complaining that they would have to play in the 7:00 on Sunday state championship game.
Oh no.
Oh no.
How unfortunate.
So Davison, they're good. Grandblanc, obviously. Again, 5 of 7 of these teams. Grandville's seen everyone in this region. Mm-hmm. And then you think we got it rough. Here in District 2, in Region 2, this is Michigan's future quarterback. LSU. And this is Notre Dame's future quarterback. And here they are meeting here. That would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's D1. First quick look, and like I said, we'll do more in a minute on this. Let's take a look at Division 2. So again, you have essentially this one is we kind of had an idea. You have the Muskegon district with Forest Hills Northern thrown in. You have the other gauntlet of a district. This is the main one I want to talk about. Any of these teams can win this district. Any of these teams can win their region. Any of these teams, I think, truly have a chance of being at Ford Field. It's that tough of a district. And I believe that the 2 Grand Rapids teams, Caledonia Byron Center, I think they're going to come into that game and they're going to do some surprising on how good they are. And I would not be surprised to see that game be Caledonia Byron Center. And frankly, that's probably the game, if it is those two especially, that we'll be at for round 2 if Grandville's taking on Rockford and our other team has it.
Yeah, for sure. I think a team in Caledonia in Division 1 last year went on a run and is still a really solid team, even though they didn't win the OK Red. And Byron Center, too, a big win. For Byron Center to be the 4 seed in there is, talks to the depth.
Right.
The 2 Portage Central and Portage Northern teams, of course, the 1 and 3. But it'd be really interesting to see that Caledonia Byron Center game. Is kind of the game I'm hoping happens there.
Yeah, I want to look at the playoff points again, because at one point in time, I'm not sure if this wound up being true, but all 4 teams in this district, I think, come close to or are equal to having all would have been more points than this district. This district's that crazy.
Yeah.
To look at. Again, you've got all 1 or no loss teams there. Division 3, this is there's kind of a couple main talking points. Of course, you first have the Zealands playing each other, and then East Grand Rapids, Coopersville. So, 3 of the 4 teams here are very familiar with each other. And then you get into Forest Hill Central. They're not the 1 seed. Mount Pleasant is. They have to get by Lowell. Mm-hmm. But Forest Hill Central, and then they have this matchup. I think it's well set up for Forest Hill Central. Going down a division this year, I think it's well set up with their defense and what they're doing. Ty Hudkins, of course, to have a chance to go back to Ford Field this year. I think they might be one of the best hopes of these kind of top 2 or 3 divisions we've talked about.
Yeah, I think they're one of the teams, from the preseason looking at things, they're one of the teams we had our eyes on that could potentially go on a run in this division, and took care of business for the most part, had a close loss in the regular season to Barnes Center. But I think a team that is pretty well positioned to go on a run there if they can avoid any upsets early on, but I think things set up pretty well beyond that.
Division 4, this is one that I think is it's a little all over the place in a lot of regards. Of course, Whitehall, Spring Lake, Allendale, Big Rapids all fit in together. You see Forest Hills Eastern winds up getting themselves a 1 seed over South Christian. That's interesting to see. It sets up something interesting there. Some of the teams that go south, again, the West Michigan storyline is going to be Whitehall and South Christian. They maybe Forest Hills Eastern can throw an upset in there, but likely it's all setting up going ahead into a potential regional championship between Whitehall and South Christian, and who winds up finding the upper hand there. I think that's really the big story. And then if we're talking about the next West Side team that has a good chance to go to Ford Field, winner of that game I think is very, when you look at who they'd be playing, I think very, very well positioned that one of Whitehall or South Christian will be going to Ford Field.
Yeah, I think the South Christian, the round 1 game, their rematch against Wayland, they just lost to Wayland last week.
I just looked past it, that's right.
So that'll be interesting. I mean, Wayland, a team that, going into it, I think most people expected South Christian to win there. And, of course, Wayland obviously in the playoffs. So they took care of business. But I think that'll be a kind of an interesting one there.
That's a great point. That throws.
Yeah.
That loss is the most like mind-numbing, set you back in your seat type of loss of the season. And it's part of why Forest Hills Eastern moves up. I had to put it through my head, why is Forest Hills Eastern won? Yeah. Because of that loss.
Yeah.
So
no, I think that's, without being at that game, it was hard to tell if they'd, just mail it in. Like, after they lose to Catholic Central, it's a tough spot to be in. So, who knows in a rematch what happens there. But I kind of wouldn't jump to conclusions, I guess, too much for South Christian. That's
a very good point. Getting into Division 5, of course, there's only one talking point, and it's that these folks and these folks are separate. Of course, Belding will be interesting against West Catholic. Will they be able to throw a little bit of something, at them? Probably not. At the end of the day, there are some very good teams in Division 5, so I would probably make some east side of the state people mad, and I say this. West Catholic Central is the state championship game.
Yeah.
I think I'll go on a limb and say it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, wherever they play, that's going to be a really good game, and I think they're definitely on a collision course there at some point. So, unfortunate that won't be the state championship game, but nonetheless, should be a really good one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then after D5 into D6 and other areas, I think one of the main ones, North Muskegon, unbeaten in D7. That's another one of the schools that we'll kind of have our eye on based on what our playoff run looks like. I think likely Michigan Sports Radio probably will have FHC covered. Honestly, that D2 run, if Grandville is to lose to Rockford, is probably where you'll see us spending some of our playoff run. You never know. We're, as always, we'll be at Ford Field one way or the other. If it means maybe we'll just do the D1 state championship game for fun on Sunday night. Who knows? Well, unless Rockford's there. Too bad, we have to play the state championship on whatever. All right, we're back. Okay, here we go. We are filling out just Division 1. We could be here. If we wanted to be here and fill out every game of every whatever, we could make this a 3-hour-long episode. But we're going to just do Division 1. I'll try to keep this up on the screen a little bit as a guide. We'll start at the top Huron snooze to you, and at the top left of the bracket, Rockford, West Ottawa. We'll take more time on these picks to be dramatic about it. So,
Okay.
Who you got?
I know we hinted at it earlier, and as much as some people may want it to happen, I can't pick against Rockford. I doubted them to start the season and not picking them to win the OK Red, and I'm not going to make the mistake in the first round, so I've got Rockford.
Yeah, you're unfortunately correct. Okay. So, of course, when I told you we were doing this, I texted you and said, I'm TBD on if I'm going to do exactly what you think I'm going to do. And then I decided, no, I think I may want to throw a little bit of competitive edge into this. Mm-hmm. And I've had a really good year burying you on a lot of the takes so far. It's been a pretty clean sweep for yours truly. And I want to go for the kill.
Okay.
So
you're going to try it.
Rockford is going to get a helping call from the officials, and they're late, and they're going to lose, and they're going to beat Rockford, or they're going to beat West Ottawa.
Okay.
Rockford wins.
But close game, you're thinking?
Well, we're not writing the score, are we?
Okay, no, we're not.
I'm just saying that you may pick up on a trend in what I'm about to say.
Okay.
So Rockford wins. Grandville Hudsonville, who wins the rematch?
I've got the Bulldogs.
So do I. All right. So then we'll just do all the first round to begin with.
Okay.
Okay. We go down to Davison Lapeer. This is a really good rematch. I'll start though, because Lapeer, even at 5-4, they've looked really solid. Davison's so good, and there are some people in West Michigan that are about to learn how good Davison is. They win this game, I think, pretty easily. What say you?
Yeah, I think, going back to the game early in the season, we're both really impressed with Davison. I think you'll see here just how confident in that we probably both are. But, I think they won the first round easy.
Battle of the Grands, Grand Blanc, Grand Ledge. We saw one of them last year in the playoffs. We didn't do the game, but they played Grandville. Grand Blanc did to start the year. Grand Blanc had a pretty tough game against Davison. Who do you think wins the 2-3?
I've got Grand Ledge.
Okay, we have our first difference. I have Grand Blanc. I think their offense has really shown that the flashes they showed against Grandville was real. They played Davison very competitively for a chunk of that game, and I'm going to give the advantage to kind of our first upset, and I'll take 5-4 Grand Blanc over 6-3 Grand Ledge. Now we're going to get the ones that we're going to pick quicker. Some of these. We'll go both Northville, Brighton, and then Novi Catholic Central. Who do you have winning each of those games?
I've got Northville, and I'm going to go Detroit Catholic Central.
I'm going to do the same as you. All right, we move into the next one, Huron versus Belleville. I'll do both my picks in one.
Okay.
I have Bryce Underwood, and I have CJ Carr.
Yep.
I have this pretty simple.
Yep, can't argue against that.
Yeah. All right, that's the left side, or whatever side you may call it, of the bracket. That's the quote unquote west side of the bracket that includes the Flint Central Michigan region. No comment. Lake Orion, Oxford. Lake Orion, really, really good. I have them winning that game. I'm sure you do as well.
I do.
Okay, so then the interesting talk point. Pair of 4 and 5 teams. Clarkston. Clarkston's got some good wins on the year I saw, and we know how good that program is traditionally. Romeo played the really good game against Caledonia at the Big House. Again, where are we at with how good Caledonia is? We're going to learn a little bit. I'm going with pedigree. I'm going with what I know who can win in the playoffs. I know a coach that knows how to win in the playoffs and a physical team that can win in the playoffs with some good players that came back from last year's Near State Championship game team. Give me Clarkston.
I'm with you on that one. I think, Clarkston, the close wins that they had, as well as a couple close losses in there as well against some really quality teams and a tough schedule. So I've got Clarkston in the 4-5 battle. All
right, next region, Eisenhower over Utica is the easy pick right there, I think, for the most part. And then I think the game that I probably, for a first-round matchup, flip back and forth of more than any other game in the state. West Bloomfield has got some really good wins and close losses under their belt at 7-2. Rochester Adams, kind of the same thing can be said. 6-3 for Adams, 7-2 for West Bloomfield. I, though, am going to go with the upset.
All right.
I'm going to go with future Michigan receiver and tight end Brady Priestcorn. I'm going to have Adams pull a bit of an upset. I think they can be a little bit. I think they actually be a little bit more physical, even though they lost some of the key pieces from last year. I'm going to go upset Adams over West Bloomfield.
Okay, we'll disagree on that one.
Okay.
I've got West Bloomfield.
Like I said, I had both at one point in time. And that's one where now that's the one time where I wish I was on the other side of the state and could have seen each of them play and have a little bit better opinion. But I'm mostly siding with the future Michigan man, Priestcorn. I think he's had a little bit going on in his family. I think his dad or something potentially passed away. So there's been some going on there, and I think they'll be charged up at Adams. That's a team that had a chance to win the championship a year ago. Again, they lost some big pieces, I know. Moving on then. I've got Chippewa Valley winning, and I'm just going to go chalk. Then I've got Dakota winning next.
I'm with you. I've got Chippewa Valley and Dakota.
And then a couple interesting games close out the bottom part of the bracket right here. Southfield A&T, of course, Zeke Marshall, a 3-star future quarterback at Kansas, who I think they really, really like there. Dearborn Fordson, I have A&T. You have the same?
I do.
All right. And then an interesting one. Westland Glen, 7-2, the favorite over Detroit Cass Tech. Give me the talent that I know is there at Cass Tech, and they have some of the same talent team that, they had Belleville beat, in overtime even last year in the semifinal game. So give me Cass Tech. They play a tough schedule. I think they're potentially, we'll see what happens. If it weren't for the tough game they have next, they'd be set to go on a run from a 3 seed, but I've got Cass Tech.
Yeah, I guess we agree on that upset, if that's what you want to call it.
Technically is.
Yeah, technically is. Yeah, I think the 2 of the 3 losses that they had coming to out-of-state teams. So I think
there you go.
I think Cass Tech's probably is legit.
Yeah, that's a good point. A very good point. All right, so now we've made it through the first round, so let's do the rest. So we go back up to the top. I'll try to throw some sort of graphic on the screen. I don't know how to best do this, but now our games start looking a little bit different. We both, though, have Rockford and Grandville.
What are you going to do?
Grandville is going to be winning the game 28-27 with a few seconds to go. Rockford is going to have a run on the near side of the 15-yard line, quarterback run. Actually, no. Let's make it 31-24. No, 31-25.
Okay.
I want it to be they need a touchdown. Okay,
I'm trying to follow along here, but okay.
Or no, even a field goal. Whatever. Regardless, Rockford's down. They need a first down.
Yes.
They're going to run a quarterback run to the left.
Okay.
Drake Irwin, we'll call him JT for a moment. He's going to try to get the first down. He's going to be clearly half a bleeping yard short. They're going to give him the first down. Rockford's going to score. They're going to win the game.
Really?
That's what's going to happen.
Wow.
So I do have Rockford over Grandville, unfortunately, but that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
So Drake Irwin, otherwise known as JT, is going to be short, but he's going to get the first down, and Rockford's going to win the game.
Okay.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, my vision was not as clear, and
I have a clear vision.
Yeah, mine just shows Rockford winning. Okay. I think Granville's got a shot at it. I think they really do. I think they could be one of the teams that can pull the upset in Rockford's playoff run, and it'd be quite something. But unfortunately, I cannot write that on my bracket. So I've got Rockford.
Yeah. Davison Grand Blanc for me. Davison Grand Ledge for you. But yet we have the same result, correct?
Correct.
Davison will take on Rockford for each of us. Okay, next section of the bracket, we both have Northville and Catholic Central. I'm going to have Catholic Central win this game. I think there's some pedigree there. I know Northville's good. Frankly, this is where I start to run out of knowledge about the two teams. I'm willing to admit that. So I'm going with pedigree of Catholic Central and knowing what they can be in the very difficult schedule they play. That's the main thing I'm going to take from is they are, of course, always battle-tested, so I'll have Catholic Central.
Okay. I'm going to go Northville.
Okay.
Part of my logic here is that either one of these teams is losing the next game in my little preview.
Okay.
So not to spoil anything, not saying what I'm picking, but I've got Northville winning this one.
All right. Battle of Carr versus Underwood.
Belleville, this is one of the picks of the bracket right here.
This is, and again, I'm not even kidding. So round 2, Grandville's likely playing Rockford. Brock Conkle, they'll probably have the coverage. I could be talked in. I don't know how big the press box is, and it's across the state, and I actually have a game the next day I have to do. I could be talked into it. Like, if there's room, I could be talked into trying to go here along with every other media member.
Right.
Going across the state, I could be talked into it. The difference, however, is not going to be the quarterbacks in this game.
Right.
The difference is the team that has like 35 D1 players and hasn't given up a point in half their games and is just loaded. They're the number 18 ranked team in the state. They're a private school operating as a public school, or vice versa, or however I meant that. Belleville. And that isn't necessarily saying anything bad about Carr, who I think has taken really big jumps this year. It's mostly that you have generational type talent at quarterback and on the rest of the roster for Belleville.
I agree with you. This is one where it's tough because you've got 2 upper echelon in the entire country of quarterbacks playing at the next level. I mean,
one's a senior. I mean, the one that we're discounting is a senior.
Correct. I think it's really hard to pick against Carr in that situation, but also this is this is the one matchup he's probably losing when it comes to pedigree at quarterback. So
if he didn't disown his grandfather and his family name and went to Michigan,
maybe we'd pick him.
Maybe it's a different pick.
Yeah. So I mean, if you told me Saline pulls the upset, it's not the biggest shock in the world, I guess, but just based on what Belleville's been and what they appear to be again this year, it's hard to pick against them.
The way to take it, and the way that, again, we'll be tipping picks throughout the rest of this whole thing in saying this, but like, it'd be a little bit of a shock still. Not very often you say Notre Dame's future quarterback won a playoff game and say, well, I'm surprised by that. You'd be a little surprised still, and that's what makes Belleville, again, I mean, they haven't lost in 3 years, and they're back-to-back state champions and, whatever. So with that set up, other side of the bracket, Lake Orion and Clarkston. Lake Orion's been on a good tear this year. Clarkston, 4-5 team. I hemmed and hawed.
Okay.
Honestly, just because of, like, is this my rivalry or this is my upset that I want to stick things really on? I couldn't do it, though, because Lake Orion's been that good this year. They're unbeaten. They've played a tough schedule. I do have Lake Orion winning, but I think Clarkston keeps it closer than the experts say, as Lee Corso would say.
Okay. I've got Lake Orion as well. I think
the number. It's inside the number.
Yeah, right.
Whatever Goose Poop puts out is inside the number.
Okay. We can agree on that.
So, yeah. Then, Eisenhower Adams for me. Eisenhower Bloomfield for you.
Yep.
I have Adams, a little bit of kind of miracle upset run continuing.
Okay.
I've got Adams winning this game.
Okay.
You?
I had West Bloomfield, as you said. I think their path ends there. I've got Eisenhower.
Okay.
So I've got that one.
I feel like I'm too big on Adams, but I just, again, obviously Parker Pico's gone, their quarterback last year, but I loved what they did offensively, and they were so tough last year, and Prescorn comes back that I'm probably way overhyping them, and I'm sure there's things I'm missing. Not being an East Side guy every week watching them, but I've got them advancing again. So then Chippewa Valley and Dakota. I mean, this is kind of a whole district of toss-ups. Give me it's some pedigree versus the largest school in the state of Michigan, Dakota. Give me the 1 seed, though. Give me Chippewa Valley, number 9 overall seed in the state.
Okay. I agree. Pair of 7-2 teams. Not gonna claim to have a ton of insight.
Yeah, right.
Either one of them. But I've leaned with the 1 seed too in this situation.
Next game, is if Belleville Saline wasn't enough for you, the bottom side of the bracket on the other side, you get the two tech schools in the Detroit area, Southfield A&T, Cass Tech. At least is how we each had things coming into this one. I'm sticking with Zeke Marshall. I'm sticking with A&T. I've got them over Cass Tech here in what's going to be, I think it's going to be a nasty football game. They don't like each other. I think this can be a nasty football game. Okay, yeah, this is going to be my team that again is the underdog. Okay, I'm gonna go Cass Tech. I think that's a good one. You picked them in the first round. I'll have them beating Southfield A&T here. I think whoever, without tipping my hand, whoever wins this game, I think is going on a bit of a run. Like, possibly to the final game, whoever wins this game, based on how things go. Let's turn it back around. Rockford and Davison. All right. Here it is. The West Side media has loved Rockford, and for good reason. They've killed everyone. Grandville lost 34-13. That was the best game anyone's played this year. They killed Muskegon. Muskegon's going to have a good chance to win a D2 state championship. However, we have common opponents. We've seen each of these teams play. It's going to be into November. It's a state regional championship game. The weather's going to suck. The game is going to be played at the TED, so that's going to help their case. But Davison, I think, is bigger. I think they're more physical. I think their run game can control the football game. A.J. Hill's very good. They have a load of receivers. They have a linebacking core that's going to completely shut down whatever Rockford tries to do in the run game. They're force them to go to the air. And they can pressure the quarterback like crazy. Davison's going to win this game by multiple scores. Ooh. Multiple scores. Davison's going to make a statement over Rockford. Okay. Rams fans are going to be shocked. Shocked. Okay. Davison, 3 scores. Wow. Lock it in. Lock it in. What do you got? You make a very strong case. And I'm going to not just refute everything you said, other than Rockford's been really close the last couple of years to having a special run. And I think lose. And they do always lose. I think we saw Davison in person as well. You make a very compelling argument, but I think this is the year Rockford wins. I think Rockford's going on a real run. So you better not, you might be fired. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, still making up my mind here as we go. Yeah, right. No, this is live. I actually don't know who I'm going to have win. Genuinely, I have a couple teams I'm under. The next game that's going to be coming up on this side of the bracket, I actually really don't know. Belleville Catholic Central. I think Saline will be a little bit more of a test for them. I agree. I've got Belleville. Obviously, we don't need to talk more about them. That'll just be all about whatever that next game is going to be. Lake Orion. And I have Adams. You have... Who's still going for you? Eisenhower. Who do you have? I think I'm going Lake Orion. Okay, good pick. Lake Orion's the easy pick. Hang on, folks. Live research. I have to see some common opponents right here for a second. I have to check on something. So just buckle up in case they beat. Oh. What did we find? They beat Adams 35-0. Okay. I got Lake Orion winning this again. All right. I was trying to make the Adams thing happen because I like pre-scoring so much, but... Yep, that made that easy. Made it real easy. Actually, it probably should have made it easier a couple rounds ago, but... That's going to be my upset still. I like Adams. They're physical, but Lake Orion's not out of nowhere, but definitely maybe one of the best years in school history. So the Dragons, who most notably, I have a chip on my shoulder because they had a high school sports or a high school broadcast station that I'm sure is still very good that beat us every year. So I'm assuming they're still good. Rockford beat it. If you're wondering why Nate has such a Rockford problem,
it started way back. It
started a long time ago.
The villain origin story coming here.
So we both have Chippewa Valley. Wait, who did you have?
I've got Chippewa Valley. Yep.
And then do you have A&T?
I've got Cass Tech.
That's right. You're Cass Tech. That's right. We're doing good. Who do you have winning?
So this one, I was doing some research as you were doing yours there. So,
okay.
This one's tough because I've already kind of been riding Cass Tech further than you did. So do I want to have to go all for it and have them?
You're kind of in the Adams situation I was just in.
I am because
I looked it up.
I mean, yeah, if Cass Tech were to go out early, then that's a mistake on my part. So
Chandler is an expert, by the way, of winning March Madness brackets,
yes.
even though he watches 3 games of college basketball all year.
Non-Michigan basketball.
Non-Michigan basketball all year. He's an expert at winning because he's very good at that exact strategy where he just picks chalk with like 1 or 2 first-round upsets.
Just to mix it up enough.
He manages to just kill you on points late because he doesn't have fun with it. He just picks chalk.
I have fun because I win. That's the whole goal, right?
So he's doing the same crap right now on this. So just keep in mind that's what he's doing.
Okay. I think I could go Cass Tech and really look like a genius, but I'm gonna go Chippewa Valley.
Okay,
that's a tough one. I'm going Chippewa Valley.
I think Cass Tech's a better team. I got A&T.
Okay.
I think I got A&T big-ish in this game too. I think A&T's really good, and they're gonna show this, and they've shown it all year long. In fact, more on the spot research. This is such a good show. This is why we're experts. Southfield A&T. I just want to make sure I'm right before I say it. So Southfield A&T beat, yes, okay. Week 1, Southfield A&T beat Cass Tech 29-27.
Mm-hmm.
So they did lose to West Bloomfield. That was their loss. So that's fun. So yeah, I've got A&T. So then the Final Fours, we'll just say our Final Fours here. I'll say mine and you say yours. I have Davison versus Belleville. I have Lake Orion versus Southfield A&T.
I've got Rockford versus Belleville and Lake Orion versus Chippewa Valley.
All right, so Davison Rockford. We'll let you go first. Where's this game going to be played? This game might be played where the Caledonia one was last year at DeWitt or maybe Neocomus. I don't know. Tough to say where they may put this one, but who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But who goes to Ford Field?
So this, I know what you think I'm going to do.
I don't think because it's Belleville. No, I don't even think you're that.
You don't think I'm that crazy?
No,
I'm crazy.
I know you are, but it's Belleville.
It's Belleville. Yeah. So for that reason, I've got Belleville.
Yeah. Okay. Good pick. So that then sets me up. Davison Belleville. I think Davison's a little better than Rockford. I think they're physical, and I think Davison has a chance to match up a little bit better with Belleville, even than with what Rockford might do. They're not beating Bryce Underwood. They're not beating Belleville. That team's so good. I think the only thing that can beat Belleville this year is top level quarterback play, like next level, top level quarterback play. Like a Saline, like maybe another team that I still have alive. I think that's the only thing that can be Belleville, where you're going to have to just carve them up with the quarterback doing crazy stuff, avoiding traffic and whatever. I don't even think the way that Caledonia tried to beat them last year, running the ball and out-physicaling them for 2 quarters, 2.5 quarters, I don't think you can do that against Belleville this year. So I think Davis has got a chance to keep it lower scoring, keep whatever, but I think the quarterback play will make a difference in that one. All right. What do you have then? So Lake Orion, Chippewa Valley.
Correct.
Who do you have going to the state championship?
So I was already on the fence as to whether picking Cass Tech or Chippewa Valley. So I'm going Lake Orion.
All right. I just went on my little rant. So A&T versus Lake Orion about quarterback play. Give me Marshall. Give me A&T.
Okay.
Even though I wrote down Lake Orion just a second ago on the paper.
You're making a switch.
No, I'm really not. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so state championship games. Belleville versus Lake Orion. Which, of course, remember, Lake Orion is the number 1 overall team in the state. So, Chalk Chandler strikes again. He has 1-3 against each other, and 3 is the 2-time reigning state champion.
We'll see.
And I have the 3 seed Belleville and the 10 seed Southfield A&T, which, of course, features 2 of kind of the 3 big-name quarterbacks in the state. I'll make my pick first. I'll let you finish.
Okay.
I think your pick is easier than mine in this game.
Might be.
Even though one's the 1 seed, but whatever.
Right.
But it comes back to my point. You are going to have to throw all over this football team. It'll be a quarterback having to make plays with his legs all over the place, under pressure, and you're going to have to find a way to just score with Belleville, who's going to be able to do whatever they want to do to score. And I think A&T has a chance to put some points up early in this game. I think A&T has a chance to throw a couple body blows in throughout the first, second quarter like Caledonia. They might even go into the half up points. But Belleville has a, bleep you mode that they can go in that I don't think many other teams in the state quite have. Back to back to back, the Belleville Tigers and Bryce Underwood.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I think I really looking this over and kind of trying to make my picks ahead of time and not just on the spot. I was thinking of where can I pick against Belleville, and you look at the city league game and there's a chance there. Yeah, I think you look at the Rockford or Davison, either one there. There's a chance. I mean, I'm not saying this is a for sure thing, but when you've got back-to-back state champs, you've got the quarterback back. That's a generational talent. Sure seems like it. Yeah. And I don't think they've taken a major step back. Yeah,
he's gotten so much bigger and so much better this year than last year.
Yep, you've been saying that all season since the preseason. Yeah. So it's hard for me to pick against him. I'm not saying it's a for sure thing, but that sure looks like the closest to a sure thing. So I'm picking Belleville.
What anticlimactic was that? We all knew that's what the answer was going to be in the end. I know everyone wanted me just to pick Grandville all the way through, which probably should have just done for fun. But at the end of the day, I wanted to see how this worked out, and I kind of picked for the championship game and for the matchups I wanted to see a little bit, and a Belleville A&T game. I'm telling you what, Sunday night. Thanksgiving weekend. I know we don't cover those teams throughout most of the year, but based on what happens, that might be one of the games where I'm like, you know what? Let's sign up for it. Mm-hmm. If it's not overly covered, which it will be, let's sign up for it, because if it is A&T versus Belleville in particular, or one of the, any of these games of these, we haven't had this kind of quarterback play in the state where you've got 3 guys that are like going to be like soft starters maybe by their sophomore year at their schools. And I know Marsh is only a 3-star, but they really like him based on what I've heard. Yeah. But Belleville.
Yep.
Back to back. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like I said, we could pick the rest, and this show could have lasted 6 hours long. Is almost legit
the pace
what it would maybe
be.
So we're not going to do that. 6:30. Friday night, game night on Michigan Sports Radio. You know where to find us. MichiganSportsRadio.com/MGN. The MGN YouTube page. We're live at both of those places. The Listen Live page on Michigan Sports Radio. Find us anywhere there. Live radio coverage, you know the way that we do it. Enhanced radio, whatever we call it. Great coverage, if I don't say so myself. It's playoff time.
Yeah.
Can't wait. And it is heck of a game. Grandville, Hudsonville, Friday night, Michigan game night. See y'all then.